Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in today on a great viewer question that comes into us with someone who's got kind of an inner struggle and an inner battle going on with family members, specifically older family members who are in their 80s. And it becomes a very delicate matter when perhaps you have, in this situation, your own parent then who has someone who they are married to or living with also in that age bracket, and there's a division or a rift or a real sort of valley in between how you relate to your parent who you want to be close with, and then there's some wedge, some wrench who's making things difficult. Who is interfering in the relationship. They might be very snide, very critical, and undermining of you. Even though you're their blood relative, they're trying to get in and divide things. You feel that a natural bond with this person who is hypercritical is almost near impossible. And to understand this dynamic, how do you deal with it? This seems to be a very common, and I'm getting more and more input from people who are in this very specific situation, particularly with parents who are older or elderly. In other words, they're retired, they can do as they wish, they can keep a schedule as they so determine, and so it is their right. They have earned it. They've earned their stripes, they've earned their place. However, as a family is still important. And family bonds have been going on and been created and formed and forged through decades. And then there becomes then a new person in the picture who oftentimes might be envious, jealous, or they're just cranky, perhaps even very narcissistic, self-absorbed, and have a pathological sense of self-importance. And with a lack of empathy, they can be very volatile and transgress boundaries. They might not have internal boundaries of their own. So they violate other boundaries of other people, especially emotional boundaries. You know, it's not just a physical boundary like having your own personal space, which you need to have, an active and conscious acknowledgement of. But these people who do not acknowledge you or don't acknowledge your presence, or who are very humiliating and mean. So these are the descriptors. And they can take advantage of others. This can be very sad to witness when someone's taking advantage of an elderly or older person. And they just don't see that they're being taken advantage of. But as a family member, you can see how they're trying to divide or kind of cut you out of the picture for some reason. And so I'm just trying to see here. Okay, so the natural person in this family is the mother. So as you know, the mother-child bond is a very special and irreplaceable one that you have in your heart. Likewise with the father, but these relationships that you have normal, healthy expectations of, these can be really broken apart when someone enters the picture who is narcissistic, has a personality disorder, who's borderline, who has, their thought patterns are very extreme. They can't be sort of wielded in. You can't have that easy flow of conversation with a borderline because they're very rigid. There's only one way, and they don't see solutions. They don't see things, as malleable or adjustable. They're just very set in their mind. It can be very difficult to have relationships, and we're not bashing anybody. We're just exploring how to solve the difficulties that arise when you're dealing with this. And so this can induce feelings of humiliation. And so being very, undercutting and humiliating. In other words, laying you feeling sort of naked, if you will, sort of undressing you emotionally so you feel shame. It's like, the shame back in the Garden of Eden. In other words, it's this original sin. If they can push your buttons and make you feel just sort of exposed, make you feel, naked, defenseless. You've been stripped. And so they do this to break you down. And it can be either there's constructive criticism, which means they can look at, ways to sort of help build you up. But then there's very critical, demeaning people who are demeaning, meaning they're putting you down. And if you're living with these people or these are in your family, this needs to be looked at and understood. How do you cope? And how do you communicate, this heart-to-heart that, you're being taken advantage of. This person is, making me feel just horrible. And this is my family. This is what I have. Well, number one, you need to understand that especially as people get older, they're going, for a lot of people, it's just how nature is. They're going to be set and in their ways. They're going to be very rigid, obstinate, meaning, very unhappy if you try to make suggestions or change their order. As people get older, they are really wanting to be in a routine, and they can be adamant. As people get older, that's a whole nother psychology of geriatric psychology. And, number one is that as people get older, they need to feel that they're still sort of, contributory, or they're themselves. There's this sort of, they need to still feel that they're industrious in a specific way or contributory to the world at large. Or if they feel like a failure, then there's this sometimes withdraw into a shell, and they can become very obstinate, very difficult, unwieldy, unmanageable. They can yell, they can be very undone, very uncouth, not emotionally intelligent, especially this older generation where they didn't have tools, they didn't have the opportunity for discussion, they didn't, become aware of the spectrum of feelings and their feelings and how they can be offensive to others. So they're really kind of in that really locked down situation. In other words, very, very difficult and stubborn. So looking at how to deal with it, number one is become very well aware of this individual who is humiliating, and don't allow them to induce feelings within you. Induce meaning almost like under your skin, like taking a shot. If they get, that's a part of that boundary violation and transgression and disrespect. If they are humiliating and sort of causing you to become disempowered, you can't really even have a chair of your own. You don't even have a 2x2 space on the ground. In other words, the ground that you walk on doesn't even feel like your own. This is a very important sign that you need to back away. And the question is, should I go no contact? Number one, you need to become very well aware of induced feelings, meaning feelings that you absorb and take on and blame yourself, which is why you're humiliated. You're blaming yourself oftentimes for faults of them, their faults. So they're wanting to kind of push it out, or what we call as projection. So in other words, because oftentimes as people get older and their abilities diminish, they become very frustrated. They're losing their independence. For an older person, people handle getting older a lot differently, but number one is their sense of independence. They want to feel that that they're not depending on anybody. It makes them frustrated. They can't do what they used to do. They can't get their own cereal. They can't cut their own meat. They can't do their grocery shopping. They feel, that their independence is being taken away. So that's a real sticking point for a lot of older people. And even for people who are just watching this and needing to know how to handle it when you've got this sort of division or this sort of rift in the family structure because someone is there who is really obstinate and narcissistic and sort of humiliating towards you. This cannot be tolerated, and nor should it. But understanding that, look for those induced feelings. In other words, those feelings of humiliation, those are induced, and the source of those oftentimes is coming from the pain and shame of that person. Meaning, as they get older, their pain, their deficit, their weakness, their shortcomings, which they don't really want to, discuss, especially if they're older, they're not really open to that. Okay, they are closed. You've got open people, older people who, are open to technology, they're open to email, they're open to traveling, this is their time, they're super happy, they're healthy, this is a different situation. That can be functional. And if they're open-minded, you can work with it, but oftentimes they're very set in their ways. It's just like the groove is so deep, it's very difficult to get them, changing. So realizing the induced feelings that you have felt like a needle squirting, toxic negativity into your arm, and it's infiltrating in your system, and you're really like on fire, you're on pins and needles, you're a lot of anxiousness brought on by the pressure of this person, and you're carrying the load. If you feel that you're carrying the load, it's time to drop the load. Even as people get older, I know you want to be there to celebrate their 80th birthday. This is a great landmark. This is a great time for you to get really involved in your family, making this time special, gathering pictures, going on Ancestry.com, pulling up, doing some research, contacting far lost family members can give you a sense of connection and legacy and feeling that your lineage is something to be proud of. It is very shameful if you are, it's very, very difficult when you're ashamed of your family. And you've got this, running through your family and you don't want to even go out. You don't want to go outside. You don't want to carry a job. It's difficult to have relationships because you're so ashamed. You don't want anybody to know what's behind that door. You don't want to know what's in your text messages. You don't want anyone to know what you have just witnessed. You don't want, anyone to know. It's shameful. You can't bottle it up. It'll eat you from the inside, meaning neurochemically, you're in that fight or flight and you're in that hyper aroused. And furthermore, it'll make you more sensitive to other situations, like that. So you need to back it off and undo and unwind any induced feelings that you have carried. You need to separate yourself, your positive functional self, which is your spirit, your body, mind, and spirit in alignment, which knows what to do, but oftentimes subconsciously you don't hear it, feel it, know it, and do it because it's so blindsided by the chaos and by the emotional overwhelm. If you're overwhelmed, it's going to affect your thought patterns. You can't think clearly. Thoughts are things. And so you can't manifest that sort of clarity and fluidity of life, purpose, and happiness because they're truncated by this trajectory or this person who's coming in, and maybe they just want your mother for themselves, or they just don't like young people. I mean, there can be a whole host of problems. Older people, they're very uncomfortable because they are envious of others who have their life in front of them, or they're still got their senses about them. So they can become very obstinate, and they don't want to. They only want to associate with older people. They don't like. They're threatened. They feel more unhealthy. It makes them feel older. So you can have some compassion for this person. having compassion, but at a distance, meaning once you get that compassion, don't open yourself up. If you've opened yourself up and made yourself vulnerable, you're going to carry those induced feelings. Like a bag, take it off your shoulders, shake it out. Shake it out, shake them out of your system. Shake them out, like literally and physically shake off their energy. A gal who I know, who I'm very good friends with, works for a natural beauty, organic shampoo, conditioner, body, makeup company. And they talk about, how they work, as an esthetician on people, and they've got their hands on them and they're picking up, they're removing that negative energy, and oftentimes they feel like it's in their body, and they're instructed to shake it out. So you have to realize that maybe you're taking on this and it's not allowing you to think clearly. So you need to back it off, and don't become attached to the outcome of what this person who is taking advantage of, obviously some gentleman who's driving you nuts, back off from that. In other words, just let's clear the slate. Let's just clear the slate and focus on you, and you are important, and you are important to your family. Let's get that up front and center, namely number one, and regain that composure, regain that place. Despite the emotional hit and runs, the humiliation, once again, the induced feelings that are sourced from an individual who has insecurities and problems and is trying to make it your problem. Do not make other people's problems and their personality issues and their tendency to humiliate, do not become a match to that. You are not an energetic match to this person. And it's not, furthermore, it's not healthy to be around people who are like this, who are humiliating in nature, because it causes you to it'll stir up all sorts of negative, anxious feelings and causing you to doubt yourself, and you will feel miserable. And that is around, it's around you. And then by basically like an emotional osmosis, you pick up their energy, and then you become like that. So become very keen and aware of who you surround yourself with. You need to surround yourself with people, information, tools, books, support groups, places, environments that are supportive, healthy, positive in nature, that embrace family values, where you can go. Meetup.com, local synagogues, local churches, local natural settings, spiritual centers, bookstores, cafes, where you can read and focus and the vibe is relaxed. Do things and begin to join up with other people so you can create a new sort of cushion and background and create new memories. So it'll help you to think clearly, and you're not carrying this negative, and you're not being modeled by this negative. And even if you're feeling guilty, begin to take a step back, and if need be, go no contact. The contact is not necessary with this person. If it's not helping you, if this relationship with this person is not helping you to get where you want to go and be closer to the family, or be present and contribute, and help make this a great celebration, this 80th birthday. I mean, this is going to be an awesome accomplishment for this person, and you want to make it special. Maybe you want to have, a couple get-togethers, a lunch, a dinner, a weekend, a celebration, make it like, with fancy invitations, almost like you would a wedding. Get involved in the constructive and stay away from the destructive. You literally have powerful feelings, and these powerful feelings are meant to be alchemized to the positive, but you need to get it out. And I would say, don't feel you have to contact this person. Deal with your mother directly. And I was just making some notes so that you can really live your own life. It's very difficult when you feel that you can't relate to your family when there's this wrench in the engine. You feel that all of a sudden here's this thorn, out of your family, growth, and here comes this thorn. Live your own life and don't allow them to stop you living your life. This can be, an ongoing, even when you're away, it can feel like a passive abuse, meaning if you're still carrying it around, these induced feelings, this humiliation, it becomes a passive abuse. In other words, you keep referencing this negative feeling pool within you, and it continues to cycle. So you've got to eliminate that. You've got to clear the slate, backing off, living your life, and detaching. And I think the video that you were watching, let me just see what the title was that you, let's see here. It just gave me a note. It was, forgive me anyway. Realize that sometimes people will try to instill a dreadful sense of inadequacy. That you are whatever, defined by the negative, inadequate, you're to this, you're to that, especially if you're dealing with someone who is borderline, they're going to put you on the extremes. It's going to be black or white, and they're not going to really see you for who you are. That's a lot of the problem, is that they can't see you for who you are, and that's, I feel, part of your heartache. And it's a shame that this has happened. And so I would say, look at your primary feelings. Make sure that you understand these induced feelings and don't carry them. Don't own them. They are not yours. It's important to understand, I think, through the healing journey, that there are feelings that are yours, which are intrinsically and creative and what I call positive orderly direction thinking, pod thinking, versus nod thinking, negative orderly direction thinking. It takes you down into the abyss, or you're out, tackling that little trail where it's taking you new places, new vistas, new perspectives, and you're becoming who you want to be. Humiliation is a sure sign that you do not need to be relating to this person. You need to back off, even if with all the positive intentions. There's gonna be a bottom out when you're dealing with people who are shame-based and who will shame. Remember, hurt people or wounded people wound, healed people heal. If this person who is elderly and is abusive as an elderly person, it can be very obstinate, and they can be very, shocking, the things that they say. And we do have a little bit of time, so it's just to bring up a little situation that I'll share with you. Sometimes when you get together with older people, they're not in the present, they're not in the now, they're not, they can be very harsh, very judgmental, very backwards, very unevolved. And if you're trying to grow and celebrate, you're on a different wavelength. So don't get on that wavelength. Realize it's their wavelength. It is not yours. What is mine and what is theirs, and begin to understand and own that and separate it. Let's just see here. So, turning the page, let's just see here. So oftentimes people, I feel that in this situation, don't live in denial. Don't continue to try to maybe explain and get closure with your mother who is 80. When someone's 80, we need to be gentle with these folks. Oftentimes as people get older, people can, without their awareness, be grieving the loss of this person, even though they haven't left this earth plane, this physical plane, because there's other planes of dimensions of existence, which it just is, So remove that judgment. It's just a matter of fact that a lot of people don't understand. There's different dimensions of existence, as well as here on this earth plane. There's people who are creative, there's people who are intellectual, there's people who are great with their hands, there's people who are great with their voice, there's people who are great with their heart, with their mind. People have all these different skills. Find yours and adhere to it. Accept it and embrace it. Stop living in denial of your strengths. Stop living in denial of your contribution and your place in the family, and be proud of it. Begin to dig a little bit deeper and get that empowerment going. When you're with someone who is narcissistic, realize that they are always going to be in a state, generally I feel, in a state of denial of how they hurt and offend others. They just don't see it. They just are too big for their own britches. They're too grandiose. They're too entitled. They've had results of grandiosity for too long that it ain't moving anywhere. It is what it is. It's just like, look at, them and have appreciation and forgiveness. They are who they are. They have the right to be this way, but you don't have to subject yourself to this. So realize that you're not going to, oftentimes with someone who is 80, you're not going to get a closure, with them. So I would say continue to contribute and be in contact the way that you want to be, and just allow that other person. Don't be attached to what they say, do, or their humiliation. Realize that that is their humiliation that they are thrusting onto you. They're like, take that, take that, take that, and you don't want to take that. So, find ways then to be involved with just your mother, making events, preparations, getting together, research extended family that you didn't know that you had, and reconnect with them. Do a little bit of growth on your own if family is important, especially now with the internet, Ancestry.com. You might, find that you've got extended family that you didn't even know that can, or, just do some research, things of that nature, where you came from, the story of your family, the story of your own background, the story of your, and pull the strengths out and begin to appreciate those. And don't focus so much on the negative and the weakness, particularly this person's behavior. So, and go no contact, but just detach. If this person is going to be around, they're going to be around. Just let them be like energetic water. Just let them flow, and wish them, I think even there's, a calming thing with hands. If I were to do this for a while, I don't know if you can see this, but you'd begin to feel calm. Okay, this is a very calming hand movement. And if you can kind of do that energetically, and sort of just clear that negativity out, you've got energy in your hands. I mean, when you do that, you can feel it. I can feel it. Some people have, hands are very healing. Begin to just sort of send that healing their way, and just push that out, that positive intention, and infuse them with that all. If, that is coming from you, that is going to be your power and not your force. So it's getting that internal generation, spark going within. So you've got kind of that flame going that doesn't go out. Do you see how you need to get that internal flame of your own, and don't let it be divided or diminished, or suffocated or extinguished by that other abusive, I guess it's a gentleman who's taking advantage of your mother. Don't allow it. They might be like the forefront, trying to step ahead of your mother, but bring your mother out front and center. Make sure that you're able to do that. And I think, that's what the suggestions I have. To deprive yourself of your family, I would say, is too much of a sacrifice. But, go no contact with this person. There's no reason for you to suffer and subject yourself to humiliation of someone who's trying to boss you out of your very own family. You were there first. You were there by your birthright. Okay, there's something to that. Think about that and then find your value within and begin to surround yourself with what you value and who you really are. So you've got that connection, you've got that reinforcement. And I hope that these videos do help not only you, but help other people who are experiencing this situation. It's your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out. Have a beautiful day.